Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm so happy you're here today because we are exploring, of course, this intersection of ancient wisdom and modern healing. And we are talking about something that is a passion of mine. I love to talk about these esoteric energy and how we can use energy to heal ourselves and bring more vitality into our lives. And so our guest today, he is a friend of mine from my time in Mysore, India. We got to hang out a little bit while we were there, crossing paths. He is now based in Los Angeles, and I'm talking about none other than Morgan Lee, who has become a remarkable healer, weaving together the worlds of Eastern tradition and Western medicine. And so he brings together this fascinating blend of his experience, first being trained as a registered nurse and working in that profession for a long time, as well as his own experience with practicing yoga and becoming an authorized level 2 Ashtanga Yoga teacher, working really hard at his own practice and his own healing journey, and then moving into using the traditional Chinese medicine of acupuncture, which is really about the energy and moving the energy and opening the energy channels in the body. And so, again, moving from the physical to the more subtle realms, which I feel mirrors really also a lot of our journeys who start into the yoga practice. We often come into the practice to heal our physical bodies or maybe our emotional selves or our mental selves. We feel like there's something that is disconnected or not working properly. And then as we start to integrate ourselves, we naturally seem to move into the more subtle realms and become more attuned to this subtle energy. And so we're going to talk to Morgan today. He has helped everyone from Olympic athletes to grandparents reclaim their vitality and movement. And he's spent years meticulously studying the human body, from its physical anatomy all the way through to the subtle energetic systems. We're talking about chakras and nadis and the different koshas or energy layers and the bodies that we have, and how we can bring all of this understanding, both the East and the West, the science and the mysticism together. And it's going to be a really fascinating, profound conversation. And I hope that it's one that helps you see how actually the science is starting to understand or prove more and more what these ancient wisdom traditions have been telling us all along and explaining all along. It's really amazing, actually. So, whether you're dealing with your own healing journey right now, maybe you're experiencing debilitating back pain like Morgan had, and that's what spurred him on his own journey. Or maybe you're just curious about the body and the practice and how to maintain your practice over a long period of time in a healthy, sustainable way. Or maybe you want to know a little bit more about the energy system and the energy body and this bridge between the Eastern approaches and Western medicine. I think you're going to find something really valuable in this conversation, and I can't wait to share it with you. So let's just get started right now. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm here today with Russell Case.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. And we are joined by Morgan Lee. You might know him as the Ashtanga Nurse on Instagram. But Morgan, you are no longer just an Ashtanga nurse.
No.
You have evolved into an acupuncturist.
That I have, yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. You hold a master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine, in addition to being a registered nurse and an Ashtanga Yoga teacher, level 2 authorized. And we met in Mysore many moons ago.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Must like 2015, 2014?
Maybe
That
around
far
that
back,
time,
maybe.
probably.
Yeah, I think so.
You used to live up the street just from where we were.
Yeah.
It might have even been 2011. Not 11, 12 maybe.
I think so. I was staying with Chris and Warren. Yeah.
I knew that you were called the Ashtanga nurse, but I didn't realize you were actually licensed as an RN. And it reminds me that I spoke to a friend this week. It's been an eventful week. And my friend told me that by sheer happenstance, totally random, and just like the sequence of people who were in line up the mountain, the two people that were with Sharat when he fell over were both
paramedics or emergency
paramedics and first responders,
medicine, EMS,
and they were on him immediately, very calmly, as I understand, very methodically, just went through their procedures. The way that he passed out, they thought it was a stroke by his initial symptoms. He kind of brought his hands up and then fell over. And then, so they put him on his side, and they noticed very quickly that his lips had turned blue, and they said, oh, this is a cardiac arrest. And just to say to our community, like, there was nothing to be done.
Truth.
They worked on him for 30 minutes appropriately and immediately. And maybe you could speak to that as a registered nurse yourself. I mean, what else could there be done?
Yeah. Based upon what I know, as far like they were pretty far out too. It wasn't like it happened like right at the initial trailhead. And even still, there's a survival rate. It definitely goes down, and just it's yes, recognition does work. CPR basically is only really buying you time until you can get under like proper EMS care where somebody is actually like pacing your heart, where they stick electrodes on to like, it's not physically because they're not physically doing it, but they're like electronically stimulating the heart and like getting other meds on board that dilate vessels so that everything kind of opens up. CPR is really just buying you time. And the most effective part of it is the chest compressions. And like you said, the people who were there were also really trained already on it. So chances are they're pretty familiar that you are going to crack ribs, that things, you break underneath your hands. There's like an out of body experience a lot of times with CPR, especially like when you know somebody and they were close. It's not like it was doing it to a stranger, it was like you're doing it to somebody that you love and you care about. There's an outer body experience is the only way that I can describe it, where like you're floating above the situation. You're looking down and you're seeing yourself doing this. And it's definitely a unique experience, not one that I ever wish anybody to have to physically do or even bear witness to, because it's serious. That's the time where you're in. But yeah, they did everything that they could. Kudos to them. It was just time.
Time. And just the way that his father went, his grandmother went. Manju was very, very close to having a serious episode happen at the same time. Got himself to a hospital on time, and they took out a vein in his leg to replace the valve in the heart.
Timing matters where all these things happen. So yeah, just where it was, being at elevation, being distance, there's factors to consider in there.
Yeah. Interesting. That the elevation would have had an impact on the care.
Not on the care, but
On the response time, it would have been harder
Yeah.
to get.
to like get people up there too. Like
Yeah.
they're carrying stretchers, they're carrying all the. It's not just like
All the gear. Yeah.
yeah, they're not like driving. You know, you got to bring in the truck. You know, the ambulance up there.
Yeah.
The guys that were there said that he was gone in 5 minutes, and I'm not sure if he was on a city street. If a ambulance could have gotten there with that kind of in that kind of time, I'm not like 5 minutes is very short.
That's well, like very short, especially for a call to hit 911 and then dispatch and then sending it. Yeah, it's again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must have seen a lot of crazy things, though. You worked in a hospital for quite a while.
Yes, I've seen crazy things. I also was an EMT on an ambulance for 3-4 years before moving into being a nurse. So
Wow,
I did the emergency.
Like your baby
stuff.
daddy.
But yeah,
Marty's baby daddy was EMT. A former, I mean, actually,
He's a paramedic.
Okay, yeah. Is that different?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's higher. Paramedics can administer medicine and other things. EMT is like the beginner, but that's what kind of got me started on my medical journey. So I went way far. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very common. And then you were doing like a lot of, it seemed to me like physiotherapy kind of stuff.
Still do. That's sort of where like my whole branch with, and kind of why I went into acupuncture in the first place was because like so much of what we do is moving energy around within our practice and like moving the energy within ourselves. And like the next logical step was like, okay, well, this is medicine that we're doing because it's a physical medicine, but Western conventional medicine. Let's like branch these two out. You know, like there's conventional medicine, which is what we're really familiar with, recognizes it, but it doesn't honor it. And some of my practices, it's important to me. It's something that I do every day. And so it was like, well, what's the next logical conclusion? And that was working deeper into traditional Chinese medicine.
Wow. What do your parents do?
My dad's a biophysicist. And my mother, she was a stay-at-home mom. She's a gardener, and she was a preschool and elementary school teacher for many years after we left, or like we grew up, and now she's a gardener.
It sounds like
living her best life.
It sounds like a lot of loving kindness.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, she's now growing all the herbs that like we talk about in Chinese medicine. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Where does she grow them? What part of the world are they together?
No, they're not together, but they're in the same very small town that I'm actually in my mom's house right now.
You and your baby daddy are also in the same small town.
Yeah. She lives in South Carolina in Sumter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that where you grew up? Down near Charleston or?
It's near Charleston. Yeah. I grew up in Miami. Yeah.
Florida man.
Florida man.
Oh my
gosh. Have you seen that, Joe?
It resembles you a great deal.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely try.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was it? Was there like a particular moment? Was it always there that shifted your perspective from maybe more of a physical focus in the practice to really tuning into this energy and this movement of energy? And how did you tap into that?
Yeah, I don't know if there was like a specific moment. I think it was more gradual and learning more about needles and not so much the needle aspect of it, but like how the channel operates and how my mentor who I work with closely will use like 2 or 3 needles and completely like life-changing moments, you know, where you walk in crippled, doubled over, and you get up on the table and like 3 needles later, it's like, okay, she's like, move this, do this. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I've you know, like had this come to Jesus kind of moment on this table. And she's very much in tune with teaching how the energy relates through the muscle channels. It was that gradual intro into it.
That's amazing. We've had a friend on the show, Sparky, from San Francisco as an acupuncturist, went to the acupuncture school in San Francisco. And that sounds very similar to what he had been showing me when I was apprenticing with him, that less is more, less needles is more. 2 or 3 needles can, one in your toe,
Yeah.
maybe 5 in your ear, but like that's enough to fix your quadratus lumborum. And I'm like telling him, like, no, you please put a needle right in there and in the muscle where it's do that. And he said, no, we're gonna put it in your toe. And it's like, no, I want it in the thing.
Well, yeah, 100%. Like, if you know anyone who's ever had like their appendix rupture, right? Like, the last thing you ever do is you don't push, where the appendix is, right? Like, you don't poke the bear kind of idea, right? But like with these needles, when they stick it at the endpoints, like this one, SI3, it's sort of like the command of the back. So like you could do like the command of the back and then a point on for the QL, because you're talking about it, but like right by the pinky toe, that's the exit of that channel. And so you're commanding it here. You're saying like, okay, this is what we're activating. There's some stuck energy back here. And so I'm going to turn on the exit, at the pinky toe, and it's going to like exit out of there. And so you need 2 needles. You might want to add, a different one to like sort of like supercharge this kind of idea.
Right.
But yeah, 3 needles and you're like, boom.
I have a question. Yeah. Speaking of appendixes.
Oh.
So when I was in India in 2008, I had an appendicitis. But before I knew it was an appendicitis, my pranayama teacher, he took my pulse and could tell something was going on. I didn't feel anything. I didn't know anything was going on. I felt normal. I mean, maybe I felt a little weird, but I felt pretty normal. And he said I should tie a cotton string around, and I think it was my right big toe, if I remember correctly, 3.5 times tightly, and sleep with it for 3 nights. And so the first
you lost that toe.
No, the first night I did it, and then I started to have this like intense pain in my appendix, like intense. And it was so intense, I had to untie the string. And that helped it a little bit, but it was still very intense because it was going into full rupture mode. And anyway, the next morning I ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
But is there like some appendix energy channel connected to the big toe? What is that connection?
So you're so spot on with it. So the big toe is connected with the pancreas. It's connected with digestion, right? And so this whole idea of churning food through and getting everything to move. So yeah, the big toe is connected with that. So like, are you familiar with hammer toe? Where like the toe kind of like, yeah. So in Chinese medicine, it's sometimes referred to as like a sugar toe, because like you eat a lot of sugar, your digestion, you're not able to digest so much. So it like moves your toe. And so you get this sugar toe, hammer toe, whichever one you want to call it, but it's all directly related to that through that muscle channel. And like that muscle channel runs like through the inner thigh and then up, but it's related to the organs of digestion. So the stomach would be more of your yang organ of sense, because it's a hollow organ, like it moves through, food comes in, squeezes, goes out. So like your hollow organs are more yang energy because they're like, moving. But like the yin, your pancreas, is more dense, like it, doesn't move or change really position. And so it's more of a yin type organ, and that's related to the more inner aspects of the body.
If you're following along at home, it's
糖脚趾.
糖脚趾. That's sugar toe.
Sugar toe.
糖脚趾.
Yeah.
You've done something really interesting also. With your knowledge of yoga, you were combining chakras, which is not in traditional Chinese medicine, as far as I know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's talked about in like one class out of 5 years of study. They talk about, oh yeah, and there's chakras.
Right. There's these energy centers, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's move on. But you're like looking at the chakras and how they relate to, I think, the meridians and sort of the energetic connection between everything.
Yeah. And it's funny how they all pair up and like color wise sort of, yeah, the colors just all sort of combine together. Yeah. I mean, as far as like tying a string around your big toe, originally we didn't have needles that we were using. It was like a knife that you would bleed the end of your big toe would be one of the ideas, like by the nail of it. And that's it just different ideas for it. And so Chinese medicine sort of evolved into like using needles and other forms. But we have yoga and we have Tai Chi, Qigong. Like they're very much the same. We talk about prana and yoga, and then we talk about qi and Chinese medicine. So like everything stair steps together. It's not like one medicine. They both evolved definitely around the same time, and it's just how they were talked about and discussed, and just language was definitely a big shift in it. And so we talk about nadis and the different areas of them, and so Chinese medicine, we have channels and how they move through the body. And so it was like, okay, well, let's map this all together. If we know we have these chakras in the body and they all kind of align with different things, like the chest being the center, it's green, right? And the center of your ribs is not, the heart, right? Because your heart is high. But like the center of your ribs, you have 12 ribs. So half of 12 is 6. And what lies along that 6 rib cage space is your liver. And the Chinese medicine pictures your liver as green. Like it's the element of wood. Wood is a green color. And we have chakras, which, your heart chakra is green, or, your chest chakra is green. And it's like, well, why isn't the heart chakra red? Well, it's because, its location is the center of the chest. And so like, it's got me like going down this rabbit hole of, okay, so now we have this here, then how do these other colors line up? And the throat being this blue color, well, your throat is your lung channel, and so it runs down out through your thumb here, and it's just this like beautiful system. And
like Shiva's throat is blue.
Yeah. Because like it stopped, right? Like that's where you get you stop the energy from moving through. And it's just it was a beautiful system. And so it's, oh well, let's finally put these things together.
And it's interesting, you don't think necessarily of your throat being related to your lungs, but it very much is.
We breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the first thing I think of, though.
What do you think of?
Like more food, swallowing.
It's really fascinating looking at a person, because I can see your kind of cerebral approach to acupuncture, Chinese medicine, yoga, and service. It's like, oh, I can see how a biophysicist and a teacher becomes you. And it's really fascinating. When you were in high school and you had decided, did you then immediately go towards nursing coming out of high school? Were there some dark years?
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
At 14, I was experimenting with psychedelic drugs, and I grew up on Miami Beach, South Beach. I started high school in the 90s, 94. And so like 94 South Beach was certainly not 2024 South Beach.
No.
It was a different scene. There were foam parties, there were really extravagant raves, and it was a different culture. So no, when I graduated high school, I went down a different scholastic road. It was more of like the school of life road. It wasn't until I was like backpacking in Guatemala that it was like, oh, hey, like I really should do something different with my life instead of this like self-serving attitude. And I was living in Colorado at the time and went back home because it was like ski bum sort of awesome life out there. And then I was like, okay, well, what's the easiest route into medicine? Because I've always been fascinated with it. And so that's where I started the EMT. And then I was like, well, this is great. What can I do more? And that's when I started cleaning up my life and went into nursing school when I was in Chicago, started learning about this wild yoga thing because, I was running marathon distances and was like, wow, there's this yoga practice. It's like running a marathon. I went to one of Kino's workshops in Chicago and I was like, this is my marathon. And I get to do this every day. This is wicked. Yeah, I stopped running the distances that I was doing and just really picked up this practice. Went through nursing school, did that for many years, and then moved out to LA. And a few of my students were acupuncturists, very similar. And they were like, yeah, this is the medicine. And anytime I was sick, I wouldn't go to a doctor. I would go to the acupuncturist and get treated there. I wanted the herbs. I didn't want, amoxicillin or any of the psyllin, family of stuff.
When I lived in Taiwan, I really became quite accustomed to seeing the acupuncturist every week.
Yeah.
And then it was also, I paid $1 for the service because it's subsidized by the National Health. And even a foreigner, what's the Hongwei is the red ghost. That's the word for foreigner. The red ghosts are allowed to go to the acupuncture, and we have a little card on our work visa. And I was just like, oh, take me to the acupuncturist every week. And they do the suction cups, they do the fire, they do the burning the coals on your skin. Give me all of it. I was up for it and really miss it, actually. Because it really is a very different mindset from Western medicine. Like where your doctor said, we're going to wait to treat your thyroid until it's broken, until it's totally fucked.
Yeah.
Whereas an acupuncturist might say, maybe there's something we can work on that now to rehabilitate it back to health now. And it's just such a completely wild and different frame. And you think maybe we are insane in North America.
I still love conventional medicine. They both serve their purpose. And it definitely also depends on the provider who you see. Just like, it depends on which yoga teacher you see and like what you're exposed to. And everybody has their own way of treating things. But yeah, there's an art of Chinese medicine, and it's not so much like, you have this symptom. Conventional medicine is very much formulaic. You have this, let's do this. You do this, let's do this. If it's not this, well, let's try this. And it's very by the book. There's a lot of statistics and a lot of data, and I geek out on that. I love statistics. I love data. But there's a time and a place. Like the human body, the human form, we're an art form on ourselves. Like it's just we're not data. We're living and breathing, and even like quantum physics. That whole idea of like if you look at something, it's different. What is it, like the two photons going through a thing, and and it'll always show up one way.
A wave and a particle at the same time, and you could then say it suggests that everything is.
Exactly. And so that's where Chinese medicine sort of like takes that into account of, yes, we're both at the same time. Conventional medicine hasn't caught up yet to that. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of science, though, is it's always evolving. It's never just, very structured, because science wants to prove itself wrong. Like that was the goal of science, is to prove that this isn't what we say this is. And so it's beautiful. It hasn't caught up yet, but it's working to catch up.
It's interesting too. I think with more and more awareness into Eastern practices and Eastern medicine and these different types of technique like acupressure or reflexology or cranial sacral or acupuncture or, I don't know, pranic healing or spinal energetics, even chiropractors. I mean, chiropractors weren't thought to be essential or really helpful either for a long time. Many people might still not think they're helpful.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Harmony's great-grandfather opened the first chiropractor clinic in Canada.
Oh, cool.
That's true. Yeah, the first school of chiropractic.
The Sturdy, Dr. Sturdy.
But yeah, I think there's more research, like scientific research, trying to understand why these things work, because they do work and people keep going to them. If they didn't work, people wouldn't go to them or wouldn't continue to pursue it. And so as we evolve together collectively, I think there's more and more sort of integration starting to happen, albeit slow.
I'll concur on that. I want to hear your thoughts though on this sort of idea of like, okay, so this collective consciousness, this collective evolution that we've, raised to in the past, 10, 15, almost 20 years, right? Like your grandfather opened up the first chiropractic place in Canada, right? So you've grown up around this alternative traditional medicine. Let's call it traditional medicine, and
My mom was also a nurse.
so she went the conventional route.
And my great grandfather opened up the first chiropractic school. Then his son, my grandfather, was an orthopedic surgeon.
Awesome. Okay.
My mom was a nurse.
Yeah.
And now I'm all woo.
Well,
Yeah, fully woo. She would love to talk about consciousness with you.
It's gone full circle. But like, I guess my question is like, yoga 20, 15 years ago was like the new, like, wow, it's this alternative. It was the woo, right? And now it's like we don't even think of it as woo anymore. It's so it's not mainstream.
It's something you're supposed to be doing. Because I think that's how most people think about it. Oh, that's something that I should do.
Exactly. And so I guess my question is, with this collective evolution, like we're all evolving in this collective consciousness, like what's next?
Wow, that's a great question.
Oh, we are slipping precariously into Armageddon.
Oh,
He thinks the end of the world is coming.
Oh yeah.
I'm much more optimistic.
Yeah, okay. I'm interested in purchasing more military grade weapons. On that, but she says we can't have them in the house. And it's like, how are we going to protect ourselves if they're not in the house? So we're working that out.
But Canada banned all guns, so we can't
you can get a license and get a gun. You have to get a license because, what'd you say? It's not a right, it's a privilege, and that's why Canada is a rainbow country, a model for all other citizens in the world. Everybody loves it here.
Truth.
It's a privilege,
not a right. You're so
brainwashed. For Morgan, it's a right. For me, it's a privilege living here. I should have the right to bear arms in Canada as an American citizen. I should be allowed to bring my guns here.
You don't, and you can't.
I don't know how I'm going to protect myself in the
with
apocalypse.
Guns get shot.
That's right.
Statistically speaking, if you have a gun, that is the way that you will die. The math says don't allow guns in the house.
Yeah, it's intention and accessibility, which brings us back to consciousness.
Amen. So what's next?
I mean, I think Joe Dispenza is doing some really interesting scientific kind of exploration around consciousness and our collective consciousness. I think some of this work that I'm doing in spinal energetics and creating intention and consciousness meeting and energy in the body and our energy being a form of consciousness and how consciousness is held in our tissues and our cells, that it's not just like in our minds or in our thoughts, that it's actually in our big toe, right? And that the meridians are actually a communication network. I mean, I think that's where we're going, is that it's not just energy that, you put a string around your big toe and it causes your appendix to like
burst.
Yeah. Whatever the problem is in your appendix, it speeds it up, right?
Totally.
But there's actually some kind of communication happening energetically, intelligence, consciousness, where, our unconscious is buried in our body. And as we tune into our body, it starts to bring up the emotions, the thoughts, the images, the feelings into our awareness. And that's incredible. That's where transformation happens, because we can't actually change anything until we become aware of it.
I would concur with that. Actually, I was thinking about this while we were talking about how the acupuncturists in Taiwan were dismayed by what would happen when they would do gua sha or they would do cupping on me. They were so black, the cup marks, that my students were very concerned because they're all Taiwanese. They're used to this stuff. It's like, oh, oh, teacher, this is not good. You're black, which is a sign of how hard I was attempting to do the Ashtanga Yoga practice, that I was building up so much heat because I was trying way too hard. And I think what separates me from my peers like Harmony or Kino or Laya is that there was a kind of effortlessness to the quality of their practice. And they weren't trapping heat throughout their body. There was a way for them to let heat flow. And that created such looser muscle tissue by the nature of their relaxation. And that approach informed their whole experience. I think I'm piggybacking correctly on what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at these qualities, and maybe you can speak to this, Morgan, what your thoughts are, but when you look at these ideas of sattva, rajas, tamas, and these just qualities of stagnation, activation, or balance, say, or clarity, and then you look at how we hold things in our body, heat, cool, yin, yang, all of these things are a part of sort of the movement of this energy or consciousness. And when we're stagnant, it starts to affect how we are perceiving ourselves, how we're perceiving the world, how hard we become, right? And when things are moving and there's a flow, again, that shifts how we perceive ourselves, how we feel in the world, how we perceive the world.
Totally.
Often I've taken muscle relaxants, especially when I was in Gokulam trying to do third series. And I would take the muscle relaxant and I would say, oh, this is what Brett Porzio feels like. He's this relaxed. And that's why he practices the way that he does. And I could just somehow access that lack of intensity, then I could do fourth series like Brett.
Yes and no. So, back to like you were talking about the other day in one of your Instagram posts, like the Louise Hay, like the tapping idea, right?
Tapping.
Yeah.
I love the tapping.
Don't make me pull out my Louise Hay story.
No, I mean, yeah, we're on board on this. So there's the cupping marks, right? Like it's this stuck energy. And I feel like in the way that we're discussing it right here in this moment of we're looking at it as like a good or a bad sort of thing, like, oh, well, I don't have this Kino practice. I don't have Elias like Gumby, like, I mean, just beautiful. He's just flipping around in the room and you're like, I can't do this today,
Cool as a cucumber, Elia.
Yeah. Okay. And then we'll go back to this idea of yin and yang. One's not good, one's not bad. They really simply are, and you can't have one without the other. It's such a beautiful balance. Like we have night and day. Like day is this bright yang. It's moving, but like night is yin. It's condensed. It's more nourishing. And this idea of this stuck energy, particularly, with like the cup marks, right? Like, your shoulder, I'm sure was like, black, right? And it's
rhomboids were black.
Yeah. And it's where the energy is stuck, but it's not good and it's not bad. It's just this cupping mark is showing you where there's work, where you can put in this work of moving these muscles and learning how to activate these muscles, and not so much of like stressing the muscle, but like, okay, well, this is the effect of the rhomboid. This is what it's doing, So let me learn how to just isolate this one muscle and move it and see what's going on in there. Instead of saying like, this is bad, it's just, this is, what can I do with it? So like the idea of the thyroid, drawing all the way back to this, like the thyroid starting to decrease function. It's not bad. You know, it's bad in the sense of a doctor saying, well, let's just wait till it falls apart, you know, like you're a Ford.
Yeah.
Like that's not something that I would agree with. But in this case of, okay, so this is what's happening. So we're you know, is it metabolism wise? Is it slowing down? Is it speeding up? Why is this happening? Am I feeling hot? Am I feeling cold? Is there more yin? Is there more yang? And then like taking action on that rather than just letting it fall apart. So yeah, I don't want to say like there's a good and there's a bad. It's just it's so beautiful that they exist at the same time, and they have to exist at the same time. I think I had a teacher once say that death is when yin and yang separate. And you're like, oh, they're not giving birth to each other. You know, like yin is the oil inside the oil lamp, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and then you have the wick, right? And the wick is just sucking up this oil, and then you have the flame, and the flame is pure yang energy. But if you don't have any oil in the lamp, it's just going to burn through the wick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have any flame, then you just have this oil, and it's that idea of like, yeah, I don't know.
That's funny. I thought you would have been raised Christian.
I was.
Okay. Well, you've really taken to this notion of balance.
Well, I agree. I don't think there's good and bad energy.
You were also raised Christian.
Yes.
It's going to be a struggle for us, is what I'm saying.
No, and it's only a struggle
Yes.
if you believe it is.
There you go.
But I just think, yeah, exactly that. We have different ways of holding, you know, memories, emotions, experiences in our body. And then when we start to do cupping or maybe acupuncture or spinal energetics or
Gua
chiropractic, you know, any of these kinds of alternative therapies, and you're creating space or awareness into certain areas, you know, you can't needle something without putting awareness there, right? What's the needle actually doing? It's so interesting to think about. People say, oh, maybe it's transmitting energy. I mean, what would you say the needle's doing?
It's fishing for energy.
It's fishing. Yeah, in a way, I guess. Okay, so chemically, we've seen that like you insert a needle and the body is releasing chemicals in response to having a foreign object stuck inside the body, right? You know, like it's releasing different cortisol. Cortisol is an irritant. You know, it's bringing chemical awareness to this particular area, right? Yeah, you know, it's saying, hey, we got to do something over here because there's this foreign object inside. But in the same respect, you know, yeah, tapping, right? You're bringing this awareness. Gua sha, right? The idea, gua. Oh man, I'm failing Chinese medicine right now, but gua means something and sha means, you know, like, and
it's probably water.
It's she is water, sh, like sure.
Let's look it up. I have got it right here.
I know. I should know this.
Probably means scraping back and forth.
But for the people at home, gua sha is a kind of scraping with a spoon against the skin that draws up this interstitial fluid to the surface in the same way as cupping, but is somehow maybe you could describe the efficacy of one or the other, but it seems to be doing the same stuff.
Same and different. So you can do different types of cupping. You can do static cupping, whereas like the cup just stays in one area, or you can do moving cupping, whereas like where it is like a gua sha, where like the vacuum sucks in and then like you move the cup up and down the back or the leg. But yeah, and the idea of like you have all this fascia that's growing together with the muscles, and it's what holds us upright. It holds us into position. But like this gua sha or the cupping, it's releasing the muscle from that fascia in a way that like allows more movement to move through there. So yeah, the gua sha is bringing your awareness of that to that area. And that's where like, you know, our yoga practice is sort of doing the same thing. Where like Padangusthasana, you're holding the big toe, right? So you're holding the end of your digestive channel in a sense of like, you know, you're telling your body, okay, we're going to digest soon, you know, like let's get started. Right. And we step the right foot forward with Surya Namaskara B, which is like moving up all of the stuff in the right side of the large intestine, which is like pushing where food exits from the small intestine into the large intestine. So it's like moving all of this energy up on that right side. And then, we do the left side afterwards, and it's like squeezing that energy up. So now you're telling yourself, okay, well, I'm not going to poo, but I'm going to like squeeze extra water and nutrients out of this feces that's sort of building up in here in a way. I don't
That's so interesting.
Right. And so like this is our yoga practice. We're drawing energy into it just by focusing these things.
Do you think that's why we always do the right side first and then the left side? I mean, maybe not consciously, like on a...
Yeah, I
Tim
mean,
Miller's organs are reversed, so it's always been really difficult for him.
but that could be I think there's logic to it, yes, and especially in India, where our Western bodies aren't always used to the food there, let's just say, and so we do have a tendency to have a little bit more morning happiness, right? And so yeah, maybe we do need to cross the right foot first in Padmasana versus the left foot. But if you're having constipation issues, then maybe you do need to cross the left foot first so that you start to work this and this system of, oh, you know what? Let's practice this way to facilitate this movement. And I think that's where like we can not be super rigid, so much with some teachers being very rigid of like, oh, it's got to be the right side first. And this is the way. And this is because Joe might be constipated for the past week. He may have some emotional constipation going on. And so Joe might need, to practice a little different. And we might need to be a little bit more forgiving and understanding of it. So,
Gua sha means to scrape wind, literally. And that's what I'll be doing after Thanksgiving dinner.
Sounds terrible.
Doing some gua sha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you think, because in yoga, the nadis or these energy meridians in Chinese medicine, I mean, nobody really knows like where they exist in the body, but there's some theories out there that they exist in the fascia.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's like part of this communication network that these meridians travel through our fascia?
Ooh. So in that we're not separated, and I feel like that's where my early days of conventional medicine and my like training within things, like we go see the GI specialist, and now like every hospital is a specialist, right? Like you have to go see your cardiac specialist, and then you have to see your endocrinologist, and it's like we've separated out our systems so much so that it's like everybody specializes in something else, ENT, whatever. And so to answer your question, I don't think it exists solely in the fascia so much. Like it's not like the fascia just suddenly exists there. Like your IT band, right? Your IT band when you're a baby doesn't exist. It grows as we start to learn how to stand up. And so the fascia starts to grow around this tensor fascia lata muscle in a way that allows you to stand upright, because that's how we've evolved. And so suddenly this IT band forms, and this IT band is basically fascia, but it's not like it exists separate of that tensor fascia lata muscle. And then you have to consider that muscle is connected to the bone, and the bone isn't separate from the fascia in so much, so it's like it all is connected. And so I can't co-sign on you with that, like it's just in the...
I don't know. It's just a question.
No, but that's where it's so... Yeah.
It's interconnected.
Yeah. And to say like, one medicine only deals with organs and bones, like it doesn't. That's why like with what I was trying to do was just map the muscle part of it. But I mean, that's only like one very small part of how it's connected to the organ system, which every organ system is connected to each other.
Can we just back up for a minute? So what have you done? You've made a book
Yeah.
And are we talking about a book that you've made?
Well, we're talking about like his whole theory, but yeah,
Yeah.
He's got a theory,
yes.
and it's become, and we have a
Morgan
PDF
made
of it, 46
yes.
pages.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can talk about this construction and what your plans are for this.
I don't have plans of the moment for what to do with it. It's just a PDF that like I needed like emotional diarrhea, you know, like I needed to get this
So cool
out.
though.
Just because it's like all of these thoughts in my head that like needed to be transcribed into
Yeah.
something that like is a little bit more physical and tangible. And so and just like with your background in all this energy work, I thought it'd be nice for you to have it.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't have plans for it at this moment. I don't even know what to do. It's just, it exists on a hard drive.
You need a business coach.
Yes, I do.
I
You know
happen
anyone?
to know who can help you.
Okay, so you're going to create an opt-in page and then get people's email and you'll send them the book for free.
Sounds good.
It's a beautiful book. Everyone should go
free?
over to Morgan Lee's website and sign up. And he'll send you a copy. Well, I think it's interesting. Like you're talking about some of these imbalances, and I think like when we think of like, you know, when you think of the thyroid, say, or acid reflux, there's an energetic component, right? And that was one thing that really helped me, was thinking like, what is my body trying to tell me?
Yeah.
Right? Like, where's the communication breakdown literally happening?
That you need to take the weekend off on.
Yeah.
That's what it's trying to tell you.
I know.
And also, you take evenings off, take a lunch break. Don't eat standing up at the counter. Don't wake up at 4:30 in the morning to do emails. There's all sorts of things.
I do wake up and do pranayama too.
Your thyroid is trying to tell you these things.
But see, that's the beauty. I love imbalance. As much as we talk about balance, like we need this imbalance that you guys are talking about. Like walking is imbalance, right? Like you think about it, you know, like we have to, in order to move forward, we need this imbalance. And so
you need to fall.
It's true.
Coordinated falling.
Exactly. We're just falling forward all the time, you know, but conversely, like falling backwards is, again, it's moving. But so, yeah, like what you're talking about is, it's just pay attention. It's like, oh, well, this symptom, you know, I'm hot. Okay, well, should I not eat hot foods? What does this do? You know, should I take
apparently tofu? Don't have the tofu.
Yeah, she can't eat tofu. It's all she ate for some time.
Yeah.
Basically, all the things that Harmony ate, she's now allergic to. Do you want to go through the list?
No, it's too long. Do you think that Chinese medicine and Ayurveda are aligned in their like heating and cooling principles, or are they different?
No, I think they're very much aligned. I think where we differ is this idea of like sattva, whereas like if we were to break it down to just tamas and rajas, right? And like food is just, you know, it's either this one or it's that one in comparison to, because like we say, or it's been said, you know, like milk is very sattvic, right? But it's not for everybody. You know, for some people it's very condensing. It causes a lot of congestion.
Are you pointing at me?
No, it's pointing to me. Milk is very not good for me.
Doing this, another thing that you're allergic to. Yeah.
So how can that then be sattvic? And I think that's my only discrepancy with, you know, as far as like classification of things. I think if we were to just keep it a little bit more simple, we have tamas, we have rajas. It's not good or bad. Again, we don't have good or bad. We just have like, this has more energy, this has less energy. And sometimes, you know, if like our thyroid is speeding up, then maybe we need foods that are a little bit more condensing, less energetic, rather than the, ooh, I'm going to fly off the handle, it's light, I want to be airy. Versus like if your thyroid is slowing down, well then, hey, maybe that's a sign that I don't need these really condensing foods. I need something that maybe is a little bit more proactive, and maybe my practice needs to have a little bit more dynamic to it. So maybe I work on building strength and I don't work on stopping my practice for 5 breaths in between each asana. Like I just run through, Sapta, take position, Ashtau, inhale up, Navachatwari, jump back. Like you don't pause. It just, because your metabolism via the thyroid is slow. So like let's make it a bit more dynamic. Yeah.
That's interesting. So in Chinese medicine, would milk be more like heavy and
You shouldn't drink
yin?
milk. You're lactose intolerant if you're Chinese, by definition.
I know.
Yeah, well, so again, like cows and bigger animals, did we really have that back then for, like in that?
It's entirely a reaction to the plague. So white people had a plague because we lived very closely and didn't wash. So we had plagues, and then the only potable water we could drink was milk. And that was why we're alive today, is that white people drank milk. And that's why we can eat cheese and no one else on earth can. So if you're listening at home, in the highly unlikely situation that you're still listening
Russell's going to write a book one day called The History of the World According to Russell.
I would read this one. I like
Inappropriate
this cow thing.
Anecdote by Russell Case.
But yeah, no, milk is very, very much yin based in Chinese medicine, and it would be considered that.
I have another question. So then this idea of sattva.
Yeah.
Do you think that it would be maybe like, because I know in Ayurveda, a lot of sattvic foods, if you want to really balance milk, you'd add some cardamom or some ginger, or, right, you'd create some heat in it in order to make it like really sattvic. Like that's like an Ayurvedically balanced, like tridoshic kind of, I mean, it's sattvic, but I'll say tridoshic, right? So do you think that maybe sattva in Chinese medicine is the actual like Tao, like the yin and the yang and their interconnection, or I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, you're so hitting the nose on the nail on the nose, a head on the anyway.
Nail on the nose.
Nail on the nose. Yeah. So our traditional Chinese formulas, if you're ever familiar with eating or like the formulas that we make, they're very much balanced. So like you will have your king herbs and your activators, but then you also have stuff that like are a little bit more congealing so that you aren't all over the place. So the idea of a formula is to be more sattvic or more like within this balance. And so yes, exactly like you mentioned it, you're not just eating one food. And so when people are like, oh, drink ginger, it'll help with your stomach. Well, it's not just ginger. Usually there's a bunch of other things within it, and depending on, do you have dampness? Do you need whatever it is? So it's not really ever just one herb. So like when people are, I love the ashwagandha people, like, oh, I take this every day. It's, well, okay, like what else are you taking in addition? Like it's usually a balance of stuff. And so it's getting to that sattvic state. Yes, 100% of what you're saying.
Did you ever take Chanavana in India?
No.
Who hasn't taken Chanavana?
It's kind of like considered like good for everyone and like good for all ailments, and it's like a molasses, kind of like herbal molasses. We used to drink it all the time.
Jesus Christ.
Chanavana. I just like the words. It's like a panacea for all things. So with all of this beautiful knowledge, your traditional Chinese medicine, the acupuncture, the chakras, the new understanding of consciousness and energy moving through the body, and your Ashtanga yoga practice, how are you integrating all of these things together? I mean, plus all of your physical anatomy and training in the Western medical system as well.
I see patients 3 days a week in person in Los Angeles, and I split that up online. So I'll either be seeing patients in person or online through physical therapy, like one-on-one sessions. And I see a lot of yoga students where they've done PT or they've done other things and they've graduated, but they're just not getting any better in their practice. And so I use a lot of this knowledge to reform their practice so that they can continue their practice, but continue it in a way that's actually more healing and more everlasting for them. And so, yeah, I see patients 3 days a week. I only teach 1 day a week now on Sundays at this like secret shala in Venice. It's amazing.
No one can go there, but if you're interested,
you have to
call
like
Morgan.
know somebody.
And you have to know Morgan's phone number to be able to practice with him. So good luck, you
Totally.
guys.
But you can hit him up on Instagram. He's a Ashtanga nurse.
He will be deleting his Instagram after this podcast.
But yeah, that's how I get to spend my time. That's how I help people. And
That's
I've
amazing.
been recently trying to do like Zoom lectures, like intensives of teaching physical movements and putting that together for like recording the Zoom recordings and putting it together in a school program so that
cool.
we can grow as a community, because I don't want it just to be like my knowledge of that, but like this collective of like, oh, well, this is the research that I've done. Like I do a lot of meta-analysis studies and like looking into different sports of like, well, how can we draw into our Ashtanga practice from CrossFit? Because it's very similar, like a lot of the strength training and dynamic movements that they do. And so like, how can we incorporate that within our own practice and grow stronger?
Wow. That's cool. Are you also seeing patients doing acupuncture as well?
Yeah. Well, and that's just it within the 3 days a week. The other days a week, I'm a dad and I love being a dad. We go on hikes for like just all throughout LA and we learn science and math and we just play. It's awesome. Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. Okay. So people have to either find you in person, hit you up online for some consultations, and
I don't know how they're going to get accepted into the secret shala.
Try and get accepted and invited to your secret shala.
Yeah.
Next time we're in LA, we're going to definitely
hang
connect.
out.
Oh yeah, and come for a sale next time.
Thank you so much for coming on our show today. It was so great to connect with you, reconnect with you, and
totally.
Let's have you back on and we can talk more about energy and consciousness.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Let's do. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Wait, before you go, I'm excited to share a special opportunity with you, our Finding Harmony community. This March, come join me and Russell in this beautiful town of Gothenburg, Sweden for an immersive 10-day yoga journey from March 21st to the 30th. There's different options for you. There's 2 weekend workshops and a full week of Mysore. You can come for the full 10 days or split it up. It isn't just another yoga retreat, though. This is going to be a comprehensive exploration of practice, combining traditional asana with deep therapeutic work, meditation, and also deepening your esoteric understanding of the practice. We'll be diving into possibly some spinal energetics, some somatic practice, the art of back bending and hip opening, weaving together all of the philosophy and practical yoga tools and education you could want. This is going to be an amazing time, whether you're a seasoned practitioner or you're brand new to yoga. There will be something in this retreat for you. So I would encourage you to come. Bring your family, rent an Airbnb. Spaces are limited, so be sure you book your space now. And to learn more about this transformative experience and to secure your spot, you can visit my website, harmonyslater.com, or just shoot me a DM on Instagram. My handle is Harmony Slater Official, and I'll send you a link and you can find out all the information there. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. Share with friends who might find these conversations valuable. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring your magic. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast.
I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.